to focus on this coming year. We are in the office finally getting a draft of the revised or the new Great Falls Historic District guidelines. This is something that has been languishing over the past few years when we received a grant award and then had to go into a private contract. And long story short is we now are starting to receive the draft. When we have gone through the draft and it's in its sort of like kind of a better format, we'd like to hand that off to a committee for the committee review offline, and then when the committee is satisfied with the draft, we'd like to bring it to the commission for full consideration. Those of you who have been with us before, we've done a number of different guidelines over the years, and this is the process that we always use. We also suggest to revisit both the downtown and the Eastside Park Historic District guidelines. There's some specific cases that we've been handling over the past year or plus, year and more that would do us well to consider revisions toward guidelines, update them accordingly so that our applicants and our commissioners can streamline our application discussions during meetings based on the sort of new information that we've been rehashing in meetings. So design guidelines is really a good topic to invest in during the next year. We have had a need for a while now to also do updates to our HP ordinance portion of the zoning ordinance. However, we still don't have a permanently assigned attorney to work with us on that. But if we do get a permanent attorney assigned from our corporation counsel's office, that will be another topic that we would like to visit. Also, in that same regard, we have had a committee together for, I'd say, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, starting to work on a special proposed ordinance specifically for murals and public artwork and even public sculptures, for that matter. We might be able to fit into that. And we did complete a draft that still does need some work, but I'd like to recommend that we have a committee look at that draft as well and get that moving forward as a suggestion for the city council to consider. So that's sort of a special one, and it's a topic that sort of keeps coming up, whether it's projects like the mural at the Overlook Park that we've done, or when NJCDC, buys a building and wants to put a historical theme mural or painting or sign on the building. So we don't really have that under wraps in our ordinance, so we'd like to pursue that as well. Also, the idea of the design guidelines, the mural, possibly looking at getting back to look at our ordinance if possible. And I know there's some commissioners who are sort of willing to get back into discussing about the Core George Fund. If commissioners are willing to serve again to discuss how to revise the Core George guidelines and sort of find our way out of the difficult position that we've been in with regard to the Core George Fund and how difficult it is to spend the small amount of interest that we are gathering on that account now. So, as you know, we have a number of standing committees, and then we have elected committees, and the chairman, we can revisit also our usual. I'm kind of ignoring the standing committees because I just wanted to mention, they go without saying, we need the design review committee and we need a designations committee, and the designations committee often handles design guidelines, but they could also be separate committees. Our bylaws cover what the standing committees are, and I'm going to invite, we also have tours and events, which I believe is a standing committee as well. So I'm going to invite our chairman to sort of take it from here with regard to committee assignments. There's still, we've always had a very active, before COVID, we've had a very active set of committees, and we're able to make a lot of important parts of our administration, more effective and more correct by having, ordinances and documents and designations and all of that moving forward at the same time as our usual business of design review and planning reviews, which is something that we are always doing on an ongoing basis and often takes up the majority of our meetings. We've also discussed in the past getting to a point where we may need to separate the business into two meetings where we have only design reviews like once a month, and then let's say other business maybe every other month. We can meet more than once a month without issue, as long as we advertise our meetings. Nothing prevents us from doing that. And sometimes it's very difficult to stay in a meeting for 3 hours and not really get everything done when we have very large projects that are complicated and there are a lot of factors to go over. So that's another consideration if we have been dealing with a tremendous amount of redevelopment projects, and many of them are large and often complex, whether it's new buildings or rehabilitation of historic buildings. They can be very complicated. So everyone knows we can spend a whole hour on one application, and the rest of the meeting is kind of gone when we do two of those, and we don't have a chance to get into these other matters I just discussed. So we haven't done this for a while. I'd say pre-COVID. We were doing it, but we were not doing it to the pace that we used to years ago. So I kind of invite everyone to think about this, and I'm also hoping that we can get back into in-person meetings maybe starting in the November meeting, as long as our COVID situation sort of stays where it is now. I've already been communicated I had a communication from the business administrator's office that next month for October there needs to be special scheduling of hearings for the city budget, and those hearings are going to overlap with, are going to take precedent over several scheduled meetings, of which ours is one of them. So we won't be able to get into the chambers on next month's regular meeting time, but we might be able to do so in November right before Thanksgiving, which is usually our meeting is Monday during Thanksgiving week, and then Thanksgiving break starts on that Thursday. So we may be able to get in for our first in-person meeting. So after having heard this, if you have an opinion about attending the in-person meetings, please email me and let me know. I've been trying to ask everyone, how comfortable they feel, and I think most of you have responded in either, casually or formally to me that you're ready to come back. And if we're meeting in our council chambers, if you've seen a council meeting lately, they've been having meetings now for a long time in person. Each one of the seating arrangements has plexiglass in between each of the commissioners and the council people. So you're sort of isolated in your own space in that regard. So that's something to keep in mind in terms of your comfort level of being there. Also, the city of Paterson and County of Passaic, as well, if you haven't already heard, have already told their employees that starting in October, we're going to that system of you're either vaccinated or you're doing weekly testing. And if you're not vaccinated and you don't provide a weekly COVID test, then you're not able to work for that week. So that's a further measure that's now been put in place with regards to our COVID protocols. As far as I know, the state governor's emergency orders for COVID protocols have not been rescinded. So our board and several other boards are, continuing to meet virtually. However, there are boards that are now meeting in person as well. So we have this kind of overlap right now. I would like to get us to get back into the meeting room together. So, I'm trying to do that for November, just for a heads up. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my portion of item 4A.
Thank you, Executive Director, for your very comprehensive piece for the first item on our administrative matters. At this time, I'd like to jump into committee assignments, which I will jump into. So the Executive Director and I had several conversations regarding the fiscal year that we're going into and sort of how we want to attack that. And I know that some people may be comfortable in their current committee assignments, and we want to kind of do a lay of the land to find out whether people are interested in shifting over to various committees. I just want to quickly list the committees out, but I'm going to send a following email after this meeting to kind of outline the committees that we have and the what we'll need is a chair for each committee. We'll also need various people for each committee, and it's if you have the availability, we encourage you to overlap in certain areas if you can. I think everyone's done a fantastic job for the last year, and so here's the list of the committee membership. So we have the historic designations, we have historic markers and street signage, we have the Core George Fund, we have the Ordinance and Administration, we have the Design and Planning Review Committee, we have tours and events. So I'm going to send out a list, and basically I'm encouraging everyone to really think this thing through. If you want to call me, or I'm going to talk to our Vice Chair Kelly, if maybe we can have a collaborative conversation with individuals and figure out how we can kind of distribute the commission amongst all of these groups. There may be some overlaps which we expect, and I think we're moving into a very critical time frame between now and 2023. And again, I just want to say thank you so much for your energy and the time that you committed towards this. This is something that I think will kind of help us move into the next stage of development for Paterson. Executive Director, is there anything else that you want to add on top of that outside of the post coordination from this particular agenda item?
No, thanks, Mr. Chairman. As long as the committee assignments are the privilege of the chair of the commission, and communicating with the commissioners about it is what you should do, just so communicate with all the commissioners at once,
right.
Because we don't want a large group conversation happening for quorum reasons, and I just wanted to point that out.
Right. And on top of what he just said, I'm going to send out my information. I know everyone has it, but feel free to call me if you want to discuss these committees. And I think the big thing is we obviously have to populate each committee. The big idea is I hope that each person has a passion for the committee that they're serving on. If there's any questions, we can we can have a detailed conversation. We can look through past fiscal years to see some of the stuff that we've done. One of the things that the executive director mentioned was the ordinance for the murals. That's something that we've been talking about for the past few years. We're looking to ramp that up now that we're moving into further development, getting closer to some big events that are happening in Paterson. Our vice chair has done a tremendous job on tours and events, so she can give you some insight on some of the stuff there. Kenny's done a fantastic job. Everybody on the commission has contributed in different ways, and I understand if people want to, kind of remain in the existing format. And I also understand if you want to shift gears and jump into another area of what we're doing. So I just want to, leave that open for you to think about so that you don't feel boxed into one area. At the end of the day, we're trying to make this city, the great city that it is, and just contribute to the existing infrastructure that that's going on and that exists. So with that being said, before we move to the next item on our on item number 4, are there any immediate questions regarding the committee assignments? Please raise your hand and let us know if there's any questions, and we'll facilitate that the best we can. And we'll have a outside of meeting conversation to kind of get you on on the same page with regards to what we need. John Franco, do you see anyone raise their hand?
No, I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we'll coordinate this outside of the meeting. I want to say thank you again for everyone for your commitment thus far. With that being said, we will move to item C under Administrative Matters, which is the enforcement/reports. Executive Director?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to turn this over to our Historic Preservation Specialist, Tim Henderson, for his report.
Thank you, Director and Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, I sent an email to you all this morning where I listed, to the best of my records, our pending and existing violations in each of our historic districts. There are actually none in the courthouse district, our 4th district. Before I answer any questions, I wanted to give the Commission some insight into how code enforcement is proceeding in our office. We have a relationship with the zoning officer where we first issue a referral to the zoning officer, and the zoning officer will then assign an inspector to issue a notice of violation. That notice of violation lists a 2-week notice period where the property can be brought into compliance, or the zoning inspector will revisit and issue a summons to the property owner. Now, as you can understand the volume of business that the zoning officer processes in the city and the number of inspectors he has, these inspectors have many properties to visit day to day, and often there is a substantial gap between the 2-week notice period and when a court summons is issued. That's just a reality of the staffing we have in that office. But you'll see in the report that there have been a number of municipal court summonses issued, and a number of projects have actually already gone to court. And in the case of at least 2 of them, the property owners have paid fines now twice, but have still not brought the property into compliance. So now, as of last week, I've communicated with the zoning officer and the prosecutor to again issue a 3rd summons, where this property owner will now pay an escalating fine a 3rd time. And our desire is always compliance, but unfortunately we can't guarantee that outcome. I also just want to give the Commission some insight into the office itself. In less than a year, we've had 3 zoning officers move through the city of Paterson. The gentleman we're working with now is, to the best of his ability, taking an aggressive approach to enforcement in our historic districts. And John Franco and I work very closely with him and the Director of Planning and Zoning. So enforcement is certainly on our minds on a daily basis, and we do our best to process the referrals we receive from the commissioners, and we continue to really appreciate those referrals. And I just want to thank you all for your support. If I can answer any questions, please ask them now.
Well, this is Rich. I just want to say keep up the good work and keep on their backs.
Absolutely, Commissioner Walter. Thank you for your support, and we will continue to do that. Thank you.
This is the director. I also want to mention that the COVID period has complicated aside from what Tim just said, also the courts, like how the items that end up in violation end up going to court, and it has definitely delayed the process even more because the courts are often being more relaxed with regard to the defendants, not being able to attend, or asking for to move their appearance to the next month because everyone is having difficulty getting communications or getting their stuff together. So we've had that experience as well during the COVID period where where things are scheduled and then they get delayed to provide proper due process or at least a better due process during this kind of virtual court that they've been running for the first time really in ever. So that's just been another factor if we haven't mentioned that. And so there are some topics that I would have liked to see move along a lot quicker that haven't just sometimes just because of this reason compounded on top of the other issues that Tim just mentioned. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our section 4C on enforcement.
Thank you very much. With that being said, we're going to move along to committee reports. Executive Director, are there any reports that we have established for this meeting?
I believe that Vice Chair Rafael wanted to provide a brief update to the Tours and Events Committee. Commissioner?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So for okay, can you hear me better now?
Yeah, Vice Chair, your phone, your device was breaking up a little bit.
How about now?
Perfect.
Oh, great. So for tours and events, we had talked about at our last meeting and the committee had met that we were going to offer 2 tours in the fall and then we were going to make plans to do the HPC dinner for January. I can just confirm that we have decided to forego the Great Falls Historic District tour in light of all of the ongoing work with the Spruce Street Bridge, the closure of the footbridge over the falls. So Giovanni and I had talked about that, and we'll save it for another time once I think these projects conclude. So I did send around an email to the committee, and anyone can jump in. We'll probably meet in the next, before our next meeting to talk about an alternate tour or an alternate program and kind of prepare for the new season in 2022. But I also wanted to just let everyone know that we are confirmed for the Brownstone, so our reservation is in. And as of right now, it would be the same room and same price point and same menu as it was at our last event in 2019. If you recall, that's on the first level. We had a buffet. It was $35 per person. So once I receive that packet from the Brownstone, we will review it in committee. And if there's any changes or anything like that, we will make those decisions and report back to you. So I just wanted to confirm with everyone, we do have our tour date, which is October 16th. It'll be of the Courthouse Historic District. I will send the flyer to everyone this evening. And then the HPC award dinner is confirmed, so we'll create a flyer and start working on, our round of nominations and things like that. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Vice Chair, for your, first of all, for your hard work on this. And we all understand the importance of it. Before we move to the next section, I just want to open this up for questions from the commissioners to see if there's any inquiries regarding anything that you mentioned. Please raise your hand and the executive director will address you accordingly. Thank you very much.
I do have one more thing to add, and maybe it's, I consider it a tour and event. But I want to open it really to the commissioners, and I guess we'll circle back when we get to project updates. This past weekend, I set up a tour of the ongoing work at Lambert Castle. It was for an AIA group, so it's architects specifically, for the preservation project and sort of things that are going on. So I wanted to, for just our group here, if anyone would be interested in that, let me know and we can set up another group tour just for the commissioners.
This is Commissioner Simpson. Can I add to that, Commissioner Rafael?
Confirmed.
I just would like to know if we could also add Hinchcliffe Stadium project to that tour, or just us as a group also.
I think that's a good idea.
Agreed. Executive Director, you have any intel on the possibility of arranging something for our group to kind of walk through the current process?
Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem to arrange for commissioners to get a tour. I would be there with you, of course. And the question though is, or part of the parameter would be, it has to be during the day, during business hours, while the construction crews are there. Because at the construction site, the contractor has site control, and we'd like to be there while the work is going on, and they're present as well. So that would make things maybe a little more difficult for people to join, but that's what comes to mind. And if there's a particular date that for those of you who are interested in doing that tour, if there's a date that's better for you, like a Wednesday, a Thursday, or Tuesday, please email me and I can put together that, arrange that during a day of the week. Let's say, whenever it fits best with the construction schedule, maybe that's 3 weeks from now or before our next meeting, and I can arrange it and send out an invite and have everyone respond who wants to join. So that's how I think I can handle it. I'd be happy to do that, and I'm making sure it'd be very exciting for all of you who can join to see it in person. I try to show photos each meeting of progress, and I have photos to show you this time as well. But it's not like being in person, of course.
Confirmed. Thank you so much, Executive Director. And Commissioner Simpson, I think that was a fantastic idea. I hope that we're able to coordinate that with everyone's schedule, along with the current construction schedule, and kind of make that a reality for all of us, considering the embodied energy that we all put into this over the years. Before we move to the next item, I want to acknowledge the commissioners that attended the training, and I'd like to get some insight, if we can, from commissioners who attended the recent training. I believe Commissioner Corbo was there. Could you share a few words on your experience, please?
Okay, you caught me off guard, Commissioner or Chair. This one, I've attended a few of the trainings. Since I've been made a commissioner, this may have been my third, I believe. And I have to say, this one was one of the more, I guess, personal for me, or that I could take more away from it, is that I could relate more to what they were talking about. They were talking about a lot of the design and the problems that they have dealing with residents when we're talking about, the Eastside Park District, for instance, and when we have to deal with some of our guidelines and what we have to do. And it just, it hit home, so I got a lot of insight from it, and it was a very worthwhile experience.
Thank you, Commissioner Corbo, for sharing that, and my apologies for catching you off guard. I knew that you would have some insight that would be useful for the group, and thank you for sharing your experience, and I hope that I'm sure it's going to translate into your what you do with the commission. Is there anyone else that would like to share their personal experience from the training? If we don't have any hands or questions, I'd like to move into the next item on our agenda, which is 6, old business and correspondence. Executive Director, can you take us through item A and items 1 through 4, please?
Yes, of course, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. So I have some, as the usual format, I have some photos to share as we go through some of these projects. Not for all of them, but updates for some and photos to share for others. And under item, A1, our first, destination is to talk about ongoing projects in the Great Falls National Historical Park or the Historic District area, the ones that pertain to the park. And I've been updating you for a while now on our situation with land transfer to National Park Service of Overlook Park and of Mary Ellen Kramer Park and the various, the visitor center project that is sort of right there in Overlook Park. And I'm pleased to tell you that we're very close now to getting to our almost final phase of land transfer. We've largely completed what we call transfer documents, which is the negotiations of deed and different easements and detailed parts of the transfer that then we get to present to the city council for consideration. And they have to pass an ordinance in order to make the transfer formalized and final. So you can imagine all of this stuff has to be done before that ordinance goes to the council and then gets on the agenda for 2 readings. One of the things that the administrative process that needed to be done was because of our Green Acres funding that was received over the years for Overlook Park. And just last week on Wednesday, there was a public hearing and a presentation provided at the public hearing about the details of the land transfer and about the park, Overlook Park, and various other aspects that you all are familiar with. So that hearing was recorded. Not only the presentation that I gave, but the slides as well. And our IT division is now putting that into like a video format, so it can be posted to our YouTube video channel. The city's video channel, and a public notice also has been carried on the city's website over the past month, inviting people to not only attend the hearing, but also inform them that they can put comments in writing to the city and to state with regard to this process until the end of September. So there is a PDF of the public notice available at the clerk's office and on the city's document center that tells the addresses and email addresses to send comments. And I wanted to mention this in detail so that anyone listening who would like to know more about this process and possibly make comments about it are welcome to do that in the various ways I just mentioned. So after September 30, we'll be waiting for our SHPO review to sort of finalize, and we'll be getting our resolution documents together. And our goal is to have the first piece of business introduced to the city council by the end of October or the middle of October. That's really just around the corner now. And the second, the first and then the second reading can hopefully conclude in early November. And after the second reading, the lands would be sort of officially transferred. Now, just to make note transferred in 2014 the Welcome Center, the small building across the street from Overlook Park, to the NPS. That was done a while ago. Overlook Park would be the second parcels, and the next and final set of lands would be Mary Ellen Kramer Park. And we just received a formal submission from the Passaic Valley Water Commission that owns land over on the Mary Ellen Kramer side for a subdivision application in preparation for that part of the transfer. So we're still, we're looking ahead to when Overlook Park is transferred. We'll probably immediately be starting on to work on Mary Ellen Kramer Park for the same, for the same outcome. And it'll take time. These things are complicated and they do take time, but just was a sort of that this application just came in, and so the Water Commission is getting ahead of that process. We had to do, if you remember, a subdivision of Overlook Park as well to prepare for land transfer. It was something that the Commission went through and our Planning Board went through. So that's where we are at with land transfer, and the land transfer has to be completed, and the council needs to accept, needs to be accepted and ratified by the council before the Park Service can start on the Visitor Center project. And we've talked a lot about the Visitors project over a period of time as well. So that's going to be coming in right on the heels. I believe they are also anxious, or in a place where they're anxious to get started on construction, and you would see that start to unfold as well really quickly. Probably, even in the winter, they may start to get into construction phase. So at the same time, we have to consider an update on Quarry Lawn Park. I've received the sort of final draft changes from our engineering team just last week. These need to be circulated back to our purchasing department and to our state Green Acres funding partner for sort of the final approval. And I'd say within a couple of weeks, it should be ready for bidding. The purchasing department assigns the bidding date, so I'm hopeful that we can wrap it up and they'd be satisfied to set a bidding date for October. So maybe even as soon as the beginning of October. So it said we'll have a bidding process, and we'll see where our bids come in, and if we're able to award a contract for the park, the next month they will probably get started. With construction, if we're able to award the contract in the late fall, when all the leaves are down, and maybe some of the site work can get done over the cold months in preparation for like concrete work and stuff in the spring. So that's another good update as things are starting to move forward. I reported to you last time that there was a supplemental grant application placed for Vista Park, which we need in order to move Vista Park forward. COVID has really delayed our ability to move forward on that because of the grant award or matching funds award that comes in the format of a grant was not announced during COVID. And also a grant for the Colt Gun Mill stabilization was put in. We expect to hear back responses on or award notices on these grant applications next month, or hopefully by the end of October, maybe the middle of October is what so far I understand might be the schedule. So I might have good news on that coming to you next month. So we also have the Great Falls Spruce Street Bridge that's still under construction. That's a county project. And if you've been by there, you can see that they've been, working diligently, making progress. We're getting to the point now where they may be getting ready to actually install their ironwork, their sort of reinforcement bars into the deck of the bridge. And once they sort of do that, which can take a while, they might be ready for concrete on the side that they're working on. When that side is, as I'm sure all of you know, when you're doing bridge work, one side has to be set up and completed of the deck before they can start the other side. Then they shift the traffic over to the completed side. So we're getting close to that, it seems. Today I was by there myself, and they had closed the bridge because work was, happening, that they needed to close the bridge, and it could have been they were unloading, like, let's say, steel bars. They were, like, putting bringing, like, material down. It could have been any number of things, but I see that they're making that progress. Also on our list is a report on the closure of the Chasm Bridge. This is something that happened recently as well, since I believe our last meeting. So I wanted to give you an update about it in case you've heard about it. I have to put on screen now a couple of letters that we were copied on. Let's see here, that's July. Let me start with this one. This engineering group that's on screen now, Vernick Engineers, were working, for the Passaic Valley Water Commission, the owners of the footbridge, crossing the Great Falls Chasm. And this was an engineering report that was provided back in January after, an inspection of the bridge. You can see they're reporting on the deck and the superstructure and the substructure and provided recommendations. And you can see right from here at the bottom of the page on the screen, they recommend that the following actions be taken: the replacement of the superstructure entirely, the replacement of the deck, with new planks, and so forth. They identified some substantial issues with the bridge to the point where they recommended that the majority would be replaced. They also provided some that could be repaired. Well, the next letter that we have dated July is like 7 months later, and it's follow up to you can see here on the first paragraph a follow up to the February 19th letter, indicating that since temporary repairs had not been made. You can see down here in the bottom paragraph, the decision to not make temporary priority repairs combined with the observed structural deficiency and poor condition rating we have resulted in a reduction of the bridge's load carrying capacity, and the ongoing corrosion of primary structural members will also result in continued reduction in load carrying capacity. So their opinion is to immediately close the bridge due to current potential future unsafe conditions for the public. So when an engineering group sends a letter like this, it's very serious. And the Passaic Valley Water Commission passed this letter on to. I was informed by Darren Bach got this letter literally about a month later, about late in August. It was like August 25th that I received copies of this letter. And he did what he had to do by reaching out to NPS engineers with this information, and they recommended that it'd be best not to keep the bridge open due to this information. So this was something that happened immediately after we were informed. The information came to us, much later than the date on the letter. In any case. So this is another reason why with both bridges being closed at the moment, having a walking tour of the district is really not effective or efficient. So in talking with Vice Chair, Rafal, we thought it would be best to just delay this until there's a better time for it. So we've already started to have conversations with the Park Service about the replacement of the bridge. We're looking probably at something that would cost about $1 million to do, and ultimately, I'm not sure that the city would necessarily be involved in its replacement at all, because the land on both sides of the bridge would be owned by the Park Service, and most likely that bridge would be, owned by the Park Service, the replacement bridge. So there's also, I think ongoing discussion about, with the Water Commission in the short term to see what the cost could be to repair the bridge in such a way that it could be opened again, maybe as soon as possible or in the next season after winter. So those are the actions I are taking, and that's my report about the closure of the bridge. I wanted to share with you and with the folks who are watching.
Chair, can I
back to our agenda? Sure.
Through the chair, this is Commissioner Simpson. I just want to state for the record that we as a commission brought this topic up a few years ago about the bridge and its need to have an inspection report. It's a little disappointing that years later we're finding out that what we kind of anticipated was going to happen previously. So I'm glad the bridge was closed for safety, but I do think we should push the State Valley Water Commission to take a stronger importance on getting this bridge back to where it was at properly. I just wanted to state that. Thank you.
This is the chair. I second that statement by our commissioner. I think that we need to stay on top of that, and I recognize your inclusion on that idea.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. So I do have some pictures to share with you for Hinchliff Stadium, and I'd like to get that on screen now to show you some of the recent construction pictures. There's a handful of them that I have. Is that sharing? You see the photo on screen now?
Confirmed.
Okay, great. Yeah, here's a panoramic view of the construction site as it looks now. You can see it's still a very active site. The piles on the right-hand side represent, more of the demolition material that's kind of ground up and gotten ready for either taking off site or if any is to be used on site. I'm not sure. It's being stockpiled. But this is another good indication of this continuing, the continued activity on this site. This is a typical methodology for dealing with concrete debris. So some of the concrete that was demolished, for example, you can see in the background on the right-hand side of this picture the large new retaining wall that was cast in place. There was a failed retaining wall there. So some of this crushed concrete could represent, that demolition portion. The upper tiers of seating were also removed and demolished and crushed. This is on the left-hand side. You see the tip of the crusher poking out here on the left side of the screen. You can see the larger pieces here in the center screen waiting to be loaded into the crusher for crushing. On the left side of the stands, you can see men working in the stands. It's completely removed all lead-based paint, so that was done for a while now. They've chipped out all of the steps. They've removed deficient areas that were structurally needed to be exposed in order for the next phase of repairs and rehabilitation to start. And here's another view of this side of the stadium that I'm talking about. Looking along the seating bowl, and right here in the foreground, where my mouse is, I think I'll post a picture of it next. Let's see. No, I don't. But right here, you start to see formwork. All this woodwork here. The formwork is the beginnings of the rehabilitation of how the spalled concrete walls are being dealt with. This is what we like all vertical walls that have spalling or loss of material like on the top side over the years. I don't know if this will work, but I might try to just blow it up a little and move it. And you can really look down into this now and see how the top of the wall is saw cut. The rebar, the reinforcing bars that are inside the walls are exposed, and then these wooden forms are built around it. They will come back and literally pour concrete right into the top of the wall to create a new cap where the old concrete was lost. So this is a typical repair that is correct for preservation purposes, and they'll be doing a lot of this in other parts of the stadium. There's a lot of degradation along the field wall in the back of the bowl and on these walls on the rear of the bowl, up kind of where the concession area is. You can also see here in the upper left part of the frame some concrete formwork that is starting to be installed, where the new toilet rooms and the new upper seating, upper tier seating will be reconstructed. I just mentioned that was removed so that they could build the toilet rooms on both sides of the seating bowl, kind of subterraneously, like underground, and then they'll put they'll replace that seating that was taken out on top of it. You can see the stairs have been shipped out, as I mentioned earlier as well. And here's a view of the end of the field. I'll talk about the vegetation here in a moment. This is the site of the new building to be constructed. The last time I showed this to you, it was post-demolition. Now you see the footings have been poured in. So these are the piers where the new building can be, constructed. So this is another, kind of the next step in its progress toward construction has been underway. So here's the close picture I was just looking for, showing the same, the formwork and the spalling being repaired. This is a side view of it. Here's an overview looking farther, beyond. We can see here the orange crane all the way into the distance represents the other construction projects associated with this stadium, which is the residential building and the parking deck building as well. Here's a close-up of the footings for the new concession building, both sides. And again, another kind of, I think this is more of a general overview. This really represents the site limit for the end of the field. This is really where the property line lies. And in discussion in my last meeting that I attended, construction meeting, they were talking about the scoreboard and the footings for the scoreboard. And that they would be right around here in this area that you see in the middle of the screen. I'm particularly interested in all this vegetation, which is technically now on city property. And my discussion with them is to assist in creating a view shed from, and we here at the commission have talked about this in different design reviews over the years for the stadium. This is a view now looking from, standing on the the new playing field, for example, would be, we're looking toward the scoreboard. And our discussion was about the removal of this vegetation so that if you're sitting in the stands as a spectator, you can see beyond, you can see the city and beyond, actually. You can see Paterson and then beyond. So this was an important view shed that we believe historically was a key to the siting of the stadium in 1930 in this location. So I have... we have received a small grant for this sort of work with regard to clearing brush and stewardship of pathways and stuff. And we are now discussing using that funding to clear this brush to help enhance this project, to further enhance this view shed. So here's a panoramic view of the end of the field. And you can see how I was thinking of how effective it would be to handle some of this overgrowth. That concludes the photos on Hinchcliffe Stadium. Are there any questions?
Executive Director, this is Chair Tate. What are your thoughts on the overall energy behind all of this in terms of schedule?
Well, they are continuing to move very, quickly and aggressively. From what I understand, they seem to be continuing to be on time on most all items, and it's being run very efficiently and effectively by the contractor and the construction managers. I did not have photos to show you of what's going on underneath the bleachers in the locker room area. They've got that all scaffolded up so that they can address the concrete repairs underneath the seating bowl. There's some significant structural issues that they have to pour in place and fix in order to not only make the seating available, but also to then move on to the rehabilitation of the interior of that space, because all of that space will be reused in the same purposes that it was historically for team room, locker room, meeting room. I think there'll also be a shower room and toilets as well for the teams. And just finally, there's a grant two grants that we received for Hitchell Stadium, one from the National Park Service for as an African American civil rights site, and also supplemented by Passaic County to do the signage stabilization and the some more exterior work that was started like on the first project that we did up on the facade of the building. So I'm looking forward to the City Council seeing at the workshop tomorrow night this resolution to have this project go out for bidding, because the bidding documents are about ready for that. So that's another aspect of this that is moving ahead. I think everything is going well as far as the energy behind the project, and they have dispatched a lot of material and labor to get to keep this going. Obviously it's a big project. They need to have a lot of people doing all the various tasks, and they seem to be carrying that out pretty effectively, in my opinion. So I'd like to move on to the other projects in the Great Falls District. First and foremost, it's not on the agenda, but I would like to give you a quick update about the recent hurricane that we had, and you might be thinking about maybe how it affected the district. And I have some photos that Tim Henderson went out and took, the day after that big storm event. Because it was clogged and the water wouldn't drain, and it would eventually overflow. And that would not be a good thing for residents in the area. So that did not happen. There's some evidence here in this photo of water perhaps having kind of overtaken this. But again, here's the high point of the Passaic River. And looking at various parts, this is the raceway along Mill Street. You can see the wetness. So there was water in the raceway here as well. So a lot of water here. And this kind of trash and all this overburden and stuff in the raceway is what would, we've got to, so this is the middle raceway actually. So the raceway flows from right to left here, in case it's not obvious. But this is important to look after, because if water does get into the raceway, even though the raceway is closed, it needs to be able to move along and get back into the river at the end of the raceway. If it doesn't, it will create flooding primarily on Van Houten Street, where there's thousands of people living at the kind of ground floor in these three mills now that we have full of residents. And during the last flood event, they all had to be evacuated, and they had water in their apartments at the ground level. So this is an item of interest that I need to make sure we document and send along to the administration and to DPW to emphasize the importance of continuing to police the raceways. As I mentioned, I'm just clicking through these because there's a lot of them. This is one of those key spots, actually. This is the downstream side of the bridge underneath the Salvation Army. Now, what we see here is possibly a camp where someone is living, and then a lot of the trash that they throw, they pick a place to stay. And this kind of debris and trash in a flood event could very well keep the raceway, back it up and create more issues for flooding on Van Houten Street specifically. By the time the water reaches this point, it would be well on its way, kind of down to the river, and we have a trash rack on this side for the purpose of, catching the larger pieces of debris, and that can create a kind of block for water to be able to continue to flow. So again, these photos really have good value in sort of being able to illustrate what our responsibilities are in terms of the city to keep the raceway clean, so that we can get the water to get to this point. So this point here is a good example showing of an outflow. Water is actually actively coming in from the left into the raceway to be driven into the river. And this is the out of the raceway as it goes back to the river. And you can see that the water is definitely high, and it definitely has made its way down the raceway back into the river. This is also a point of note here. This is the check dam. During Irene, the check dam was actually overtaken. Water was going over it and running down the street, actually right down Spruce Street, and it was settling into the low point where the Burger King is at the intersection of Market and Spruce. It did not overcome the check dam at this event. However, you can see that it raises up and is touching the very bottom of this gatehouse structure, which points out again the importance of stabilizing the structure, because it is in need of stabilization to keep it from actually falling into the raceway. There's some structural issues with the supports underneath that have been identified. This is, I believe, the other side. You can see the upper side of the gatehouse, and the water has gotten right up to the bottom of it, and maybe even you can see another kind of watermark here, maybe even gone higher than that. So this was a major flood event. There was some unprecedented results from the flooding that was caused by this hurricane. Somewhat different than Irene, but also significant. So we're going to be taking these photos and writing them up for the record, sort of in the same way that Commissioner Simpson just mentioned, to document what we advised attention be paid here, so that in the next event that happens, because these seem to be happening more frequently, we might be better prepared to keep the residents on Van Houten Street safe. We did look at the Van Houten House. The Van Houten House looks intact. I'll just kind of blow through these. We have funding for an engineering study to be done to kind of button this building up and get it ready for, and get it protected for future rehabilitation. And we're back to the beginning. So that's our report on how Ida affected the historic district. And luckily, it did not have a tremendous detrimental effects with regard to inland flooding beyond the raceway, which was a problem, after Irene, as I just mentioned. So another one of the projects that is listed on our agenda that I have photos to show you is the new gymnasium building on Morris Street. So if you recall, the overall, if I can go back here, I have photos of it. Let me start with, yes, I don't have them. Okay. So the larger building was rehabilitated for a charter school, and an ancillary industrial building was demolished to create space for this gymnasium, which was an important part of having a school. And this is a concrete tilt-up building that I showed photos of when they were building it. It was very fascinating. I showed a video actually of them putting it up. And this is the treatment of the facade that the commission prescribed. It's a hand-laid brick facade that's facing the street. The area that's blank up here will get a 10-letter sign that working on the reviews for the sign as well. That gets these 10 letters that gets posted here. These are windows that were salvaged from the demolished building and put into the new building, and they're now, they were rehabilitated and installed. I inspected them, and they moved forward into actually painting them now. You can see this isn't quite done yet. The photos were taken at a time we were still not completely done with scraping the paint off, but we've also passed along to them that this color should also be changed to a green color. The green color is the one that was reviewed for the Lambert Castle replacement windows. In fact, it's a very beautiful, dark, like rich green. It's the color of, actually the name of the color is the lettuce, romaine lettuce. So if you know what romaine lettuce looks like, the name of the color is romaine lettuce. And it's got that nice, dark, rich, leafy green color. And picture this in now in a green color, I think it would be much more handsome and better looking. The archway above the window was reproduced in the same way as from the historic building, and you can see we went through a lot of trouble with the choice of these bricks. The bricks look very fine, and I thought I had a photo of the other buildings on campus to give you an update of what it looks like, but it's coming along very well. I believe they got their temporary occupancy, so they may even be starting to use this gym this fall semester. So those are the photos I wanted to share with you of how the facade of the gym building came out.
Gianfranco, it will be called Community Charter School of Paterson.
And that's a lot of words. That's all going to go up there.
Correct.
Yeah, that's I wasn't sure what they settled on in terms of their wording. There's a lot of space, so actually it's not a bad idea to have more, sort of more than less in a space like that. So I had photos of Lucasfilm Park as well.
Executive Director?
Yeah.
This is the chair. Quickly, I just want to acknowledge before we move to the next one. I'm glad that it's nice to see the progress on this. I remember going through the stages of review for this. I think it looks great, minus the paint job, which you clarified. Thank you for clarifying that. Just to kind of go forward with what you said about the lettering, I think more is better than less, because then that would require the application to be scaled down to a certain degree. And I look forward to the updated review with the romaine lettuce color and the scraping of the paint for final review of this, just kind of observation purposes.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Appreciate your comments. I just found these photos. I took these photos today. This is I had these in a separate folder, so I thought these are important to show, though, because you can see that one of the things that did happen because of the flood event was this pole collapse. This pole actually collapsed during the flood, during the hurricane event. And today, a lot of us were down there. You can see, I'm not sure if I have I don't really have a close-up photo of it to illustrate, but I can just maybe blow this up a little bit more. And you can see that the wires here in the base are still connected, which was something that TSCAG came out to help us shut the tower off so that these wires could be cut, and our DPW could remove the pole and stockpile it with the other poles that I have in storage pretty much on the ATP site at the moment from the Lucasfilm Park project. Now, you can see all this kind of stuff here is rust, and the base that's mounted into the concrete that holds the pole up is completely rusted out, causing the pole to collapse. It could have been the high winds that finally had this pole collapse, but the degradation of rust obviously happens over a long period of time. in point, this is the first time without a car hitting, a pole that I recall that a pole has actually fallen down because it's been rusted out. And this is something that can continue to happen in the district, which is a very serious problem. This could actually kill someone who's walking underneath on the unfortunate moment that it falls. So we did review in our last meeting I did go over with you and provide a presentation about our lighting design standards and introduced the idea that I was ramping this discussion up with the administration, and a council member was here on site with us today, and I also discussed it with her. And Councilwoman Mims is someone who's been championing the sort of lighting throughout the city, street lighting, and been on top of that for a while now. So she was concerned about this. So this is a conversation that I think is going to start moving along for obvious reasons. This is just another example of why this discussion and planning for this is so important. I'm going to open up another folder to show some photos of construction progress at Lucasfilm Park. Okay, do you see the Belmont Grill on screen?
Yes, I see it.
Okay, Rich. So I took this photo at the Belmont Grill, which is like a hot dog place over in what's Halen, border of North Halen. And this is a piece of slate that has been like laser engraved with, Belmont Grill. This is right at, like at the entrance door when you walk in. And it was convenient for me to take this picture when I was there for lunch one day because it's an example of what we have in mind for engraving on the slate stones at the Lucasfilm Chauncey Park project. So we had this discussion with the contractor who is going to be doing the engraving, and the engraving in this case would be going around the podium in similar stone, so it would look like that. But let me put that aside because the photos here are showing that the interior walking surfaces on the interior of the park are starting to be formed up. There's sort of a circle. Part of it has been poured. This is the transverse walkway that goes like through the circle. This is the natural pathway that people have been taking for years through the park. In terms of now it's been formalized, and you can see the lighting base that's right here. There's several lights along this pathway. Here's a piece of the curved walking area that forms the circle. And in the distance, you can see the reclaimed pavers, and then the spot where the gazebo used to be, which is now going to be a performance podium reinstalled. So here's another closer picture of the pavers that existed at the park were reclaimed and now relayed. They're all in place. And the area where the podium will go. These are the slates that I was just mentioning would be the possibility of having them engraved with slogans that Lou Costello said, like, who's on first, or it hasn't been exactly decided, but there could be engraving on these areas. Now, here in this it's sort of like rectangular area, we're also looking at placing on a base a cast bronze plaque with the a bas-relief of Abbott and Lou, their faces sort of like looking at each other with words in the middle. That's another feature here that we're working on as a design feature that we discussed during our review of this project, and of course the performance podium in the center. Here's another view of the paving, and looking toward the grass area of the park. And these are the steps that are now formed and completed, and you see a lighting base here. This side is still gravel. This will get a planted like sod surface. The other side is already a cast concrete paved surface where there'll be tables and chairs And here they'll be, if you remember, you can see these white pallets are the chessboards, the cast concrete chessboards that we saw, and tennis table table that we saw in the design presentation. They're currently now moving as well to demolish the peripheral sidewalk and to install new lighting. So this was the day where they started to demolish this portion of the sidewalk. Here's a photo of where the playground will be installed. The play surface is kind of defined now by concrete curbing and this retaining wall on the Chauncey Street side of the park. And I'd like to point out that I sent around a PDF to commissioners to help decide about the color of the play surface. And I've received from about half of the commissioners some responses about option A, B, and C. And it was option B, or option number 2, that seemed to be the one that's most popular. I was hoping that I could ask anyone now if they would like to tell me during the meeting what was their preference from those 3 options. So I'd like to the end of the photo, I'd like to just pause a moment here and ask commissioners if you would like to sound off to right now about which option you prefer. I need to give them an answer like probably tomorrow, because they're really waiting on us to give them this answer.
Executive Director, this is the chair. Is there any way you can display the options just so that they're available for critique?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes, of course. I didn't think of that, but let me grab that. It's under a PDF.
Through the chair, Director, are you just interested in the people that did not respond to you, the commissioners that did not respond?
Yes, I know that you did, but if there's anyone who remembers seeing this and did not respond, I'd like to give you the opportunity to respond now. We don't need to take a formal vote. I would rather probably just have more input, and we'll just take it from there. I'm looking now for the document to put on screen, so if anyone, just be patient and I'll get it up on screen.
This is the chair. In the interim, I think Commissioner Corbo brought up a great point. I think that the commissioners who did vote should also chime in, just so that there's kind of a balanced perspective. Although this is not a final vote, it's not a formal vote. It's more of a kind of informal conversation regarding.
Because we learned that the color scheme that was presented to us was not the final one. There was a specific kind of research done on colors that were appropriate for children with autism that would, kind of assist them. One color over another would be preferable. So we asked for input about that, and so this is part of what was provided. I want to show you the third. Here's the third option on the screen. It's sort of a purple, light blue, and dark blue combination. This is option 3, and then I'm scrolling up back to option 1, which is the earth tone, and option 2, which is the kind of green and blue, light green, dark green, and medium blue. Also, the play equipment that you see, I can probably blow this up a little bit as well to assist with, seeing it a little better. The play equipment that you see in place, like it's like kind of a bright purple, There's one here where my cursor is going around. I'll bring it over, I'm going to blow it up even more, actually. And it's like a very bright green, very bright purple. This is one of those rotating rides that looks like you sit on and you rotate yourself. These are the actual colors of the equipment. And so you'll have a chance to be able to look at the scheme with the actual colors of the equipment there as well. So far, people who responded seem to be attracted to option number 2 more so than option 1 or option 3, which is down here. So anyone want to provide some input?
I see Commissioner Corporal's hand is up. Do you have any insight or
No, I'm sorry, I didn't take it down.
Okay. This is Commissioner. This is Chair Tate. I tend to agree with the commissioners with option 2. I believe that they're all nice options in the sense that they're subtle and the contrast between the colors are not too drastic. I think the reason why option 2 is the most attractive for me personally. I don't know if we have any standards or regulations. I know that there's studies have been done for autistic children. I think it's sort of the playfulness of the earthiness, the kind of blue water, greenery kind of thing, which kind of I always try to relate things back to nature in some way. I understand that option 1 is earthy, but I think there's something grandiose but subtle about the option 2, which I find to be fascinating. Again, I'm not, just as a disclaimer, I'm not a psychologist on colors and autistic children. But I do believe that this color scheme from a perspective of aesthetic and understanding that there have been studies completed to make this work. I think the purple adds a layer of contrast that works with the palette that's presented on the screen, and ultimately something that I think could be of interest for that particular zone. It doesn't scream, too, out there in a way, if that makes sense. And that's just my perspective. I think they're all interesting color combinations. However, my eye is drawn more to option 2, if that makes any sense. And I'd like to invite the rest of the commissioners to, share their perspective as well. Thank you.
I also agree with Commissioner Tate, and then I will go more with option 2.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Rick.
Commissioner Walsh.
I had voted for option 2, and I'm sticking with that. I don't particularly like any of the options, but of the options, 2 I like the best.
Thank you, Commissioner Walter.
This is Commissioner Corbo. I also voted for option 2. It was between, for me, option 1 and option 2. I actually like the earthiness of 1, but I chose 2 because it's really a park for children, and I thought the color would be more beneficial for them. And I do know that for autistic children, blues and greens tend to be calming. So I can see that they took that into consideration, so I chose option 2.
This is great insight, commissioners. Do we have any other commissioners? One thing I do want to add in, which I think is kind of interesting about option 2, is like when you think about like a globe, in your mind, you think about the way the nations are represented, the continents, and then you have the water. It's almost like they're playing on a globe in a way, and from a metaphorical perspective. And if all the science and the psychology is integrated into the consideration on top of the calming colors that Commissioner Corbel just mentioned, I think it's a brilliant solution. And again, I like to invite other commissioners if there's any other perspectives.
Well, thank you to the commissioners who spoke up. I'm going to advise them to go along with option 2. Thank you again for taking a look at this. I just wanted to mention under GFHD that the Argus Mill redevelopment project is in a place now where they're trying to finalize and close on their funding, and they're very anxious to get that project into construction as well. And in SHPO review, we've been consulting on some monitoring or archaeological work to the level of effort with archaeology to be invested as part of the project. So wanted to update you about that. The Section 106 review entailed, of course, reaching out to SHPO with plans, and the archaeological report that was required by the commission was delivered, and there's been additional effort, requested. So I should be able to update you again on this project as well, possibly getting underway soon. So that would conclude discussions about Great Falls Historic District projects. And moving on to Eastside Park Historic District, I had informed the commission last time that I had met with a project kickoff meeting for a grant-funded improvement project that we reviewed for pathways and for traffic control and parking, parking striping, and the whole kind of scheme for Eastside Park to be safer for pedestrians and more friendly for pedestrian users especially. So that project is underway. Unfortunately, the photos didn't come through with the others, and I don't have photos to show you, but I did intend to show you some photos of the progress on that project. So next time I'll update you with photos. Just want to let you know that it's been underway. As for various historic sites, I'm pleased to tell you that the grant that was received for the limited rehab of Danforth Library, we just completed our draft set of documents and project specifications and sent them up to the SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, and we got a green light from them to move forward. So we are now in a phase of continuing to finalize the plan set and the specifications toward getting to a place where we could be bidding soon. So that's also really good news. And Lambert Castle's restoration is continuing to be ongoing, and I wanted to give Commissioner or Vice Chair Rafael a chance to say a few words about what's happening at Lambert Castle.
Sure. I actually was, hold on, this computer. Will I be able to share some photos?
Yes, I have to stop sharing my screen, and you should have a control function to share your screen. Do you want me to stop sharing, and then I'll stop sharing, and then you can go on sharing. So when you see the other screen, the WebEx screen, then you can go ahead and share.
Sure. Does everyone see, I guess, all right, yeah. So I'm just going to show a few samples of kind of where we're at in the project. So we're very fortunate that we'll be able to start closing up a lot of the finishes inside of the castle. Given that the roof material has finally arrived, we were getting quite worried that we would not have it in time before the fall and winter season. So once the new roof is placed on the castle, we will start to finish a lot of the plaster work, painting, etc. So I kind of find these to be like the fun photos, just to show kind of the ongoing work and some of the restorative work that we're doing in the castle. So the picture, there's only like 8 images, I believe. So I'll try to make this quick. So the image that you see before you, if you've been to the castle before, this is the dining room. All of the walls are plaster, and they have this very intricate detail within the plaster. Some of this had crumbled as we started to clean and take off all of the loose paint. Through historic paint analysis, we're going to be refinishing the plaster work and the plaster painting with this sort of panel mock-up that you see before you. As you can see over time, that has changed quite drastically. And also in the dining room, and again, these are sample mock-ups of restoring of the sort of, well, sanding and revarnishing the woodwork that will be done throughout the castle. So these are sort of the 2 mock-ups after and before. As you can see, it really now pops than it once did. Lambert's office, we found that during the 1995 to 2000 restoration, that although a historic painting analysis was conducted, a lot of the restorative work did not follow that from painting, and also just general recommendations that were provided in the historic structures report that was done in 1990 and 1991. So a lot of the work that we're doing, is based off the historic structures report. Lambert had a very interesting taste for color. There's over 54 colors that will be used during this process. So for example, this room, which was Lambert's office, so this is also on the first level. Again, it's a lot of plaster work. When they did the restoration in the late 90s, you can see that was all painted one color. No, Lambert in fact had sort of this green color, very gold, everything, gold overlay on a lot of the molding, as you'll see, like it's sort of pinstriped, including like different colors. And then when we get, hold on, out of order. When we get to the side, even like the window panes, a lot of the woodwork has multicolors. So this room will be completely and drastically different than when we're started. And again, these were all mock-ups just to approve the different coloring. In the foyer, so this the center hall, again, a lot of the plaster had deteriorated over time, so there's going to be a lot of plaster, we've been doing a lot of plaster remolding. You can see even the discoloration. So he had, again, a lot of gold accents. A lot of the original colors will be brightened up. There's a lot of sanding and patchwork. So again, this is samples there. Painting. We're going to see a lot, again, of color. There's different green hues. There's different beige hues, even pink hues. We also have approved all of the wallpaper that will be reinstalled in the various rooms that had wallpaper. And they're, for what we had, we were able to, exactly match, maybe 3 of the 4 rooms that are going to have wallpaper. His sort of waiting room next to his bedroom, we had to kind of guess based on historic images. This room here that I'm kind of showing the column, it's the atrium. If you've ever seen the center hall, atrium kind of goes into into the breakfast nook, and the breakfast nook traditionally or historically had this wall closed over, and it was covered in lattice, and it had these intricate columns and woodwork and decorative woodwork. So we're bringing all of that back during this process. So probably by the next meeting, I think I'll have some of that woodwork to show you. But again, just kind of showing the drastic difference for what the columns will look like. And this room is very like bright blue and gold. So this is just some finishing work there. And you'll see, maybe not so much in all the photos I showed you, but there is a lot of plaster damage as we start to scrape old paint. We have to repair a lot of the walls throughout the building. This is the atrium, so in this one's kind of cool because you can see all the scaffolding. The skylight will start work in the next week or so on the repair, which is why we have all the scaffolding inside, so that will come down and be entirely redone. But I have this image to sort of show you, so this is a sample of the column work, and what's interesting about it, as I zoom in, and even just this entire project, like all of this painting and delicate work that will be done is all being done by hand, and it's a crew of 2 people that will be working on the entire building. So we'll see a lot of different accents throughout each of the rooms. And, so this goes back into that breakfast room, just again, sort of mock-up of what the painting schematic for that room will be. And this is going back to the foyer, so we have different gold samples, so there's probably 20 different gold hues that are being used through this project. And again, a lot of this is done by hand, because based on, the analysis, like everything was painted a different color. And I think that's the last picture I have, so I'll stop sharing my screen. I just wanted to show you some of the finishing work because this has been sort of our focus for the last month. Tiling, wallpaper selections, different stones, wood flooring, varnishes that we're going to be using. So we really are approaching sort of the end of the project. The castle, as of last week, is still on schedule. It would be completed by January 20th, 2022. Any questions?
Vice Chair, this is Chair Tate. I want to say thank you for your comprehensive and reconnaissance research and very selective and prescriptive finishing for the specific detailing throughout this project. I remember when you first started it, and to kind of see where you guys are now is fascinating, and it's tremendous. I think the revival of these details takes the narrative of Lambert Castle into the next generation, and I commend your work and your team's involvement in this process. I'm excited for the completion. Thank you for your stellar, obviously work ethic and involvement in all this, and your presentation. I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Very much so.
Thank you, Vice Chair Rafael, for your presentation. Just a quick note to mention that before doing the interior delicate work that was just demonstrated, we've been actively involved with mock-up reviews for a lot of the exterior work that has been also ongoing, and is probably coming around the corner for completion as well, now that I understand the roofing material has been received. But we've been doing our standard, mortar reviews and mock-ups for stonework and so forth. So, we've been up to see the project and involved in the way that we usually are. So again, this is a wonderful presentation to see the work now progressing on the interior as much as we've been working on the outside. So kudos to Kelly, and great job. We really look forward to further updates. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the director's reports under item 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair, for your report. So at this point, we'll move into item number 7, which is new business. Is there anything to report? Executive Director, I know we don't have any
No,
applications.
Mr. Chairman, we do not have new business this month. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're gonna move into,
I do have a question on the new business, though. I was a little confused, John Franco, when you were speaking about next October meeting being in person. Are we gonna have to have proof of vaccination or a recent test, or is that something else you were talking about?
I believe he mentioned that November would be the target date, but Executive Director, please add your perspective on this.
Yes, we had talked about, last meeting we talked about getting back to meet in person, possibly in September, meeting for this meeting. But since that time, the COVID situation nationally has kind of ramped up again, and we decided to stick with this format for September. And I received an email from the administration about October's meeting. Because the city council is doing budget hearings, we've been asked to continue to stay on virtual for October. So I had suggested that we would come back for our first meeting in person in November before Thanksgiving, if the COVID situation stays steady, sort of where it is now. So that's the first thing. We're looking at November as the target, and of course, I'll be informing everyone well in advance to be ready to come in. And then I mentioned about the staff are now required to show vaccine status and so forth, which is not new news. Everyone has heard what's been precipitating. And that doesn't apply to people coming into the building, which would include public, and which would be the policy for everyone else other than staff. It's the same COVID precautions that have been and protocol that have been in place in our public buildings for the whole time, which is social distancing and squaring is required. So the answer is no. You wouldn't be required to show like proof of vaccine as a commissioner or as a public person coming into the building. It would just be the standard protocol.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
Thank you. So at this point, I'd like to move to item number 8, which is the public portion. Can I get a motion from the commissioners to open up the public portion?
So move.
Second?
I believe that was Commissioner Garcia, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay, so Secretary, we have Commissioner Garcia for the motion, and then we have Vice Chair Rafael for the second. Can you have a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Garcia Leon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed, Could you repeat that, Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Corbo,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice Chair Rafael,
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Chair Tate.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So at this moment, it's 8:31. Can you provide the telephone number for the public to call in? We're going to give them 5 minutes from the moment that the number is released to call in.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Those who would like to participate in the public portion may call in at 973-321-1010 1579 and enter meeting ID 711-680-001. Again, those who would like to participate in the public portion can call in at 973-321-1579 and enter meeting ID 711-680-001.
The time is now 8:32 p.m. In 5 minutes, at 8:37, we'll close the lines. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, IT informs me that we have no callers in the queue.
Confirmed. I'm going to give it a couple seconds more. It's still 8:36. At 8:37, we'll completely close it. The time is now 8:37 p.m. And there are no callers confirmed by our HPC commission. And we close the public portion. Can we get a motion to close?
Make a
So
motion
moved.
to close.
I heard Commissioner Garcia Leon for the motion, and I heard Vice Chair Rafael simultaneously for second. Can we confirm?
Confirmed, Mr. Chairman.
Can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Garcia Leon.
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Yes.
Commissioner Corbo.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rafael.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Walter.
Yes.
Chair Tate.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Before we motion to adjourn, I just want to say to everyone, thank you so much for your participation. I will be sending out, as stated earlier, the committee destination locations for the next fiscal year, as outlined by our executive director. With that being said, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so Secretary, we have Vice Chair Rafael for the motion, and we have a second by Commissioner Garcia Leon.
Confirmed, Mr. Chairman.
Can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Garcia Leon.
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Yes.
Commissioner Corbo.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rafael.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Walter.
Yes, and good night, everybody.
Chair Tate.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone. I want to say this is a fantastic commission. I want to, just commend everyone for the hard work, and I look forward to pushing to the next phase of our development and everything. I hope everyone has a great night, and thank you to all the listeners that tuned in to our meeting. Thanks so much.
Good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
So long. Good night.
Good night.